Hey, ever feel stuck and wonder why some people achieve greatness while others remain average? Join me, Mark Jean, and Beyond Average to Great as we uncover the secrets to breaking free from mediocrity and unlock the greatness within you. Through inspiring stories and insights from people who have changed their lives, you'll learn how strong decisions and bold actions can take you to the next level. Let's go. Hey, welcome to another episode of Beyond Average to Great, where I truly believe that we all have greatness inside of us, and it just takes a decision. So everything that we do to be great starts with a decision. And so today I am excited to have our guest with us, Steve Smith. He is the CEO and co-founder of Atlanta Technology Contractors in Atlanta, Georgia. He's an entrepreneurial leader with a powerful track record of scaling companies, expanding market presence, and driving profitability. He's known for his ability to cast a clear vision and build high-performing teams and lead organizations to exceptional performance. So Steve, welcome.
Mark, thanks so much. Happy to be with you today.
Yeah,
Appreciate
glad to have you here. Excited to have our conversation. One, since we are in very similar industries, actually the same industry,
it.
just
Absolutely.
different parts of the country. And
hmm
so I'm excited to learn what you've done to grow your business the way you have and just the team that you've built. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, how you got involved in technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it started when I was in college. I started off as an audiophile, and of course, in college, you're broke, you have nothing to buy. And so I was really fascinated with Macintosh gear.
Hmm.
And so I just had this conversation with my roommate one day, and he goes, "Oh, by the way," he said, "I have a dear friend of mine in Winter Park, Florida, by the name of Charles O'Mara. He owns a company called Absolute Sound. I need to introduce you to him." So that summer passed, and so I went and met with Charles and just kind of had walked into what I call audio heaven. I mean, it was more Macintosh gear, more stuff, and it was like the
Hmm.
clouds parted. I'm going, okay, this is going to be fun. And so I got to know Charles, and at that time he had a retail location that he was just starting at that time to be involved with Cedia as a founding member, and then also had this thing he called Custom Audio, which was run by a guy by the name of Ted Hollander. And so I was real fortunate to kind of work around two entrepreneurs, two guys who were kind of the frontier, blazing the trails, they call it with Cedia, and just kind of
Hmm.
fit the organization. I remember I was in college, they invited me to the first Cedia in Jacksonville, Florida, and there might have been 100 people there from the South just to kind of begin to build this organizational structure to support these companies. And so they offered me a job to kind of help them with that. And so I worked. It's pretty funny because Charles said, "Hey, I want to give you an opportunity to come in and do some sales and design. I think you'd be great at that. But before we do that, I want you to install for 6 months and kind of learn the business from the ground floor up." Well, at first, being in college, I'm going, wait a minute, where the entitlement thing hit in. Like, look, I
Yeah.
don't have to install. I'll be able to do all of this. And I can remember having that conversation with him. He said, "One day you're going to thank me for me telling you that you really need to do this and get this under your belt," which it did. Help me everything from bidding a process, how much labor we need, what's it really going to take to get this project from conception to completion. And so I had the opportunity to work with him for about 4 years. And then when I graduated from college, he offered me a full-time opportunity there. And that was an incredible, incredible journey and just learned so much from those two individuals who still talk to him quite a bit, just great thinkers,
Hmm.
great innovators. And it was an incredible opportunity for me to kind of cut my teeth still while in college. I got out and realized, okay, this is something I want to do one day on my own.
That's really cool. Now, what did they give you that foundation of how to build a business?
They did to a certain extent. Now, Charles was more in the retail side of thing. That was his sweet spot, the old two-channel stereo shop that
Yeah.
everybody came to on a Saturday and listened. Where Ted really was the one who mentored me on this new thing we call custom integration, design, and build. And I really learned a lot from him in reference to one, how do you, one, do a site survey?
Hmm.
Second, how do you create a budget and a proposal that makes sense? There's one thing to create a proposal, but there's another thing to make sure you got good margin in that proposal.
Yeah.
How do you cascade your labor? He taught me a lot about you have some people that are going to come in, they're going to retail shop. And this is
Hmm.
before we had access to a lot of internet where people could shop you a little bit, be like, hey, oh, I saw this at Best Buy. What's the difference? And help me learn the strategy of how we really design around that. He's also the first one that really helped me learn the principle of really helping qualify a client for our company. You
Hmm.
know, and that's something that we do a lot of times is that a lot of when we have a project we know is going to take maybe 12 months to complete or 24 months to complete, the first thing we do is engage in a design build with them, and we charge a small fee, which we apply towards the overall design. But two things happen in that engagement. It really gives us the opportunity to kind of secure that client. We
Hmm.
really understand, are they really our client? There's some clients that, as our company has grown, we've realized, you know what, we might not be a good fit. And we can then put them, with someone who might have a smaller company who's starting out and say, hey, this is a great company that you can work with. And that's one thing Ted taught me. Don't be fearful of your competition. Get to know them.
Hmm.
So sometime, and I have a lot of guys in the Atlanta and the Southeast, I'm able to call if we get a large project that comes in, we've got a tight timeline that I'm able to pick up the phone and call, hey, can you help us out for this project? And there's no of this, oh, well, what if I take the project over? We've developed these relationships. So that's one thing I've learned. When I sold my first company, I held it kind of like this to where,
Yeah.
okay, everybody around me in Atlanta is my competition. Then I really learned, the principle of how important it is to network well and
Hmm.
to help each other out. Because, there's enough business like where you're located in the Atlanta market to keep us all busy.
Yeah. And that's the same here too. I think that's something I did unbeknownst to me of what I was doing was partnering with or collaborating with other
Yeah,
guys that did the same thing. And sometimes it's like, solopreneurs that just
right.
were doing things out on their own that we needed additional help with. So that's smart. And it is good to see how even though there's competition, we may not be competing on the same jobs just because of the size of the company or the scale of what they're
Sure.
doing.
And where
But
that's worked for us is, we have a commercial division of our company, and we're probably now about 70% commercial. And a lot of those referrals come from individuals who own companies who say, hey, I just don't do commercial.
yeah.
A lot of times they say, hey, Atlanta Technology Contractors, that's their sweet spot. And they really that's become a great collaboration with us.
So how did you develop those relationships, especially because moving more into commercial, um, that because that's a great resource to be able
Mhm.
to have referrals for that. So how did you let them know you guys are focused more on commercial?
Yeah, it was just through a lot of series of lunches and just one-on-one contacts. I try to at least touch base. And other reps that we use would, they might be let's say a KEF rep or whatever it might be, would say,
Hmm.
oh, by the way, ATC is really beginning to do a lot of commercial. If you need anything, they're the guys to kind of go to for that. So some of it was word of mouth, and then some of it was very intentional. I probably went after two key dealers who I knew were working at that C-level home level for residents,
Hmm.
knowing hey, they probably have a boardroom, they probably have a conference room, they probably have a new building they're going to build. And that's how those conversations started. Then from there, we began to strategically look for high-end commercial builders, the ones that are building the office spaces that are going to require those things I mentioned. It could be card access, it could be cameras, and those are kind of what I call baseline entry levels into their domain. And then from there, we grew it into their huddle rooms, their conference rooms, which brought up the a year and a half ago starting the LED wall company, just because I was like, okay, we're sourcing so much of that equipment. What if we just do our own and be able to
Hmm.
really compete and make that something that's part of our portfolio as we move forward as a company?
So I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself where we're going with some of the
Yeah.
questions I have, but this is great. I love this because do you do on the commercial side, is it mostly business or do you do like multifamily, like MDU projects as well?
Yeah, currently it's mostly businesses that we're doing. Here in Atlanta, there's a company called Roam, ROAM, and they're kind of the WeWorks remodeled. They kind of figured it out. And so
Uh-huh.
we manage all 8 of their locations in Atlanta. And that came through a strategic relationship. We just finished the last 18 months building their flagship location here in Atlanta, which is absolutely amazing. And they literally, every one of their locations is sold out. If you
Wow.
can try to get an office in there. So we support in those areas. We also have a couple podcast rooms that we design and build for them.
Hmm.
we kind of listen to them as a client saying, okay, how can you leverage a podcast room? Well, there's a couple ways. You can make it revenue generating by having an operator that's there. So now those rooms are booked consistently 2 to 3 times a week with individuals coming in and say, hey, I don't really want to buy all the equipment myself, but I know I can come into a room that's really set up well, have an operator there with me to kind of operate the cameras and produce for
Mhm.
me and offer that as a service. So they're seeing a lot of traction with that. So in the commercial space, we've had to become really creative and going, okay, how do we, one, continue to scale it where it makes sense for our company? An example is like anywhere else, we have a lot of data centers that are coming to Atlanta. So we've been approached to say, hey, can you come and do all the cabling for that? Well, as you
Mm.
know, that's a fine line you have to walk. That could really collapse your company real quick
Yeah.
because you've got a 100,000 square foot, manufacturing facility or a data center. Now you're having to go in and pull all your resources to it. So because we did start getting a lot of demand for that, we have really done a great job in the last year finding qualified 1099 contractors that we can use for that infrastructure work. Then we bring our team in to do all the termination, landing the racks, making sure it's all done. So that's something in the last year and a half we've been real strategic on, making sure we
Mhm.
don't overwhelm our teams and that we really execute and use our current staff for things that we know will not, one, burn them out, second, won't overwhelm them.
Now, what kind of support agreements do you have with those businesses?
Yeah, so most of them are just 1099. We do have like a non-compete with them as well, just to say, hey, we're bringing you to the dance. They typically will bid the project before the project starts. And so
Okay.
we work up to a budget number with them. We already have our labor budget built into it. So we kind of navigate it. And they kind of, they used to be, give me a price per drop. Well, that works in some cases, but when you get into it, it's more, we've already done the design build of the fiber ring. We know where things are going. We understand
Yeah.
the links. So all we're asking them to do is support it on the labor side. And
Okay.
we have a really good, I want to say form. We're always tweaking the formula, but so far we've been pretty successful in what's working there.
Yeah, most of the commercial stuff we've done has been multifamily,
Uh-huh.
and it's not that profitable for
Yeah.
us. Um, for the amount of work and the amount of time that we have to put into it, and we've just kind of made a decision, you know what? We're not going to really move forward with it because it's more profitable for us in the residential side. Um,
Mhm.
some of the commercial stuffs we've done, like restaurants and things like that, that's
Sure.
been profitable. But
Absolutely.
yeah, multifamily has been challenging from a profitability standpoint. We enjoy the process of the job,
Mhm.
but the actual having to compete sometimes on pricing or get the pricing down. So there's just not much room for margin if you have to pull, additional runs or things like that happen.
Yeah, it makes it very difficult.
Yeah. So now what about like service agreements with the builder or the building to be able to support them? Do you guys have like monthly service agreements?
Yeah, it's interesting. The one client I was telling you about earlier, they've approached us about doing that, and then we kind of gave them. So the way I approached it was one, before we just hand you a service agreement, let's look at all 8 locations. Let's really see how much time we're spending there. So we
Hmm.
came up with an agreed hourly rate for us to for us to roll a truck, get a tech there, and we just bill them by the hour, time and material.
Yeah.
So when I talked to their general manager, he really liked that concept because then I knew I could get a real time gauge on, okay, this is what we need to look at for a service agreement. One,
Hmm.
I did not want to leave money on the table,
Yeah.
and I also want to make sure that we are being fair to him with that. So we're getting ready next year to actually start kind of a service program with a couple of their locations strategically. And some of that would be more like once a quarter going out and doing maintenance on all their projectors, just making sure everything's in calibration, nothing's
Yeah.
out of. So we're going to begin to kind of tailor make that for them. And under the service agreement, then if they need us to send a technician out, there's a discounted hourly rate that goes
Hmm.
along with that to complement that service agreement. So we're going to try 3 locations, see how that works. But we've got a little history with those to know, okay, we really feel solid that, one, we're going to make sure the client isn't overpaying for something and they
Yeah.
just kind of forget about it. But in our service agreement, we spelled out 3 or 4 things that we felt would be mission critical for them to continue to maintain that equipment at a high level. So, like for instance, the podcast is part of that as well.
Yeah.
We'll test it, just make sure everything's working so that something hasn't gotten out of sync. So I think that's going to be our first kind of test there. We do have some service contracts with another company where we support one of their outdoor LED walls.
Hmm.
And from there, we actually upload all the content and the scheduling of the wall. So they'll send us some in the month. They'll say, hey, this month we want to watch, these 5 different games. Tuesday night we want to have, whatever it might be on. So we go through strategically and schedule that. And it's all run through Control 4, and we schedule everything. Then when it's not there, it's just like an advertising loop, which they're starting now to get residuals from. So it's starting to, if they're starting to figure out that marketing plan on, hey, we can actually sell ads when we're not having anything on the LED wall in Central Plaza.
That's pretty cool because I never realized that was another source of revenue for the
Yeah.
business that we could promote in selling those LED walls.
Absolutely. And so we've taken, it's the LED wall. I still think it's somewhat of the John Wayne world right now.
Uh-huh.
You got a lot of guys that are competing. You can buy very inexpensive LED walls. We made a decision on the first 2 that we did. Gosh, this would have been 6 years ago. These are large outdoor LED walls that we worked with a company to come in. One, I knew our guys could do all the cabling, but
Uh-huh.
the engineering and the way we had to span it and get it set up and tensile speeds and all this different thing and the wind load. And I just said, we do really need to partner with someone that can come in and support us on that from an engineering standpoint. So
Yeah.
when I started Imagine Displays, which is ATC does all the installs for Imagine Displays. Mike Ackridge, my business partner there, is a true legitimate engineer, comes in with a real engineer mindset to where we can actually make the LED wall a scalable thing for the client. So a lot of the times it's just educating the client, especially if it's
Yeah.
an outdoor LED wall. It's, hey, here's a way that you can do it. Same thing with Rome. Your members now, if you have an LED wall in their conference room area, you can put rolling banner ads on there and charge a small fee per month for your clients to promote their business within the Rome network.
Okay. Now, are most of the LED walls you do on in a commercial side, or do you do any on the residential side?
No, we do a lot on the residential. It's probably about 50-50 right now.
Now, in Atlanta, I don't know if you have to deal with this, but in California, we have a lot of settling of the ground. So so there's been instances like even with shades or whatever, where you set the hem bar alignment, so you're setting the limits, and
Right.
one side of the shade might touch the floor, and the other side there might be a gap just because of settling or things like that. And we've noticed with LED walls, you get the panels all nice and tight, and then 3 months later, the you start to see the lines in the panels. So, do
And you
you
think
have
that's
to deal with
more?
that?
No, to my knowledge, as of yet, we have not. Now, we have not done a lot of work in the California area, but as far as the Southeast is concerned, and a lot of that too, and I'm not saying it was not, one of the things that we do different is we actually build all the custom frames in-house.
Okay.
So it's not like we're saying. So we actually bolt the frames, build them. We have a machine shop that does that for us. And we use some technology. And I'm not smart enough to talk about this because I'm not an engineer. I'm more of a sales guy, visionary. But
Uh-huh.
we do have different types of things that we're using that actually will adjust, not saying would solve that problem, but would adjust the wall once it's in place. Just if it does shift, instead of us having to take the whole wall down, our backing is set up to where we can make some minor adjustments to
Hmm.
level that back up. Because over time they will settle to a certain extent,
Yeah.
depending on how it's located, how it's hung. The outdoor wall that I have at Trilith, we've had zero, knock on wood, zero issues with that. And but it took probably they probably have at least 90 plus hours in engineering in that wall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, back to kind of more business
Yeah.
aspect of things. So, what's like the first step that you go through when you're starting when you built your business and you start to think about scaling out and adding more people to the team, so what processes or systems do you put in place first?
Well, that's a great question. I always call it the threshold of pain. It's kind of where we start.
Yeah.
Where are we currently right now with the threshold of pain? Are the bolts on the plane falling off? Are we good? Can we really take this next opportunity and scale it well? Um, we do a really good job, I think. Every company has its blind spots. So
Hmm.
please say this is not as if we've got it figured out. But what we do, we really try to be intentional of checking in on our Friday meetings in our Friday meetings, I'll have our CFO, our COO, Mario, my partner, our director of operations. And we spend a lot of time just really talking to one, what's our pipeline looking like? And we're very fortunate. Our pipeline always looks pretty strong. Are there opportunities that, and as you know, in this industry, you'll always get that phone call going, hey, I kind of got a panic moment here. Can you guys jump in and do this? So we monitor that. We try to leave at least 1 or 2 days a week open to kind of help those clients that might call in and go, I need this done,
Mm.
versus saying, oh, we're 3 weeks out, we won't be able to get to you. So those are the things that we monitor really closely. And every Friday, it's a long task. We go through every project from top to bottom.
Mm.
Even though we're using tools such as Monday.com for our technicians to update, it's different when you get a technical note, but then also being at 10,000 feet, I kind of say we're like air traffic control, just
Yeah.
making sure, hey, are we missing anything on a project? Was there something that was said or a timeline that got shifted that we're not aware of? And we just really, and it does feel like Groundhog Day sometimes, because you go, hey, we
Hmm.
talked about this last week, but then it's really important, I think, to really set that what I would call the pace of your company in those meetings,
Hmm.
because it allows us to do more of the driving than reacting. And as you know, in the service business, you're always gonna have that phone call where it's like, "Oh, by the way, my projector's not working. What, did you have
Yeah.
a surge? What happened?" And we're real strategic that we just said, "Okay, we're gonna make Fridays our service call day unless there is a real issue that the client says, hey, I have an event going on and nothing's working." So we have kind of Alan does a great job of kind of going, hey, what's the threshold of pain? Is it something you can wait till on Friday? And then usually from, 8 o'clock until 2 o'clock, we've got 1 or 2 vans that are doing nothing but service calls.
Now, Fridays for us, we've realized that that's not a great day to do certain things,
Mhm.
whether it's install, network install
Right,
or certain types of service calls, because if something happens and we need to come back the next day, that's a weekend, and
sure.
so it kind of ends up falling over until Monday if we need
Right.
tech support or some sort of support. Do you guys run into that issue on Fridays, having that set aside as your service call day?
No, we don't. I mean, there's probably some scenarios I'm not aware of, but for the most part, in our Friday meetings, I have not heard anyone say, hey, we're having some issues, or I get out there, and there's a problem and the switch is bad. Now we got to do it. Now, our commercial side, I'm speaking more service calls on the
Yeah.
residential side. Our commercial side, we have to be very, very strategic when we're scheduling that. We're doing a large finance company right now, got into the process of it and realized, okay, wait a minute. 2 weeks ago, we were given the green light to work normal hours. Then we got a phone call on that Monday, said, hey, you got to do some drilling. There'll be people here. We need a crew to work overnight to get this work done.
Mm.
So we really now have been posed to ask those questions ahead of time. And there's certain times we know, okay, we got to guide this process. I mean,
Yeah.
as you well know, superintendents, all they want to do is get in, get it done, and they're kind of reacting constantly. I
Yeah.
call it in man-to-man defense, going, oh no, I got to run over here and do this. Oh no, I got to. So we have a really good meeting that our project manager who is responsible for that. So we sell a commercial project, we hand it off to a project manager who then updates daily. He's talking to the contractor, updates daily on Monday. Here's where we are. That's how we flagged
Mm.
it. Like we're just saying, oh, he's asking the right question. So a lot of that was us really having to make sure we are asking the right questions
Yeah.
and what the timeline is. And as you know, in the commercial world, the timeline constantly moves quickly for the most part.
Yes.
If the owner walks in and go, oh, by the way, I can't, my team can't work remotely anymore. We need to be in here in the next 20 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Uh,
that's when you have to do a really good job of shifting it around. And I would say for the most part, just because we've worked so long, I'm super fortunate to have a great team. at that level who really understands, how to navigate that process. We don't get
Hmm.
it right all the time, but I would say that's probably one of the reasons we get so many referrals from some of these larger high-end commercial builders is the quote they say, not my words, their words are, you're by far the best technology company we work with because you communicate, you're ahead of the curve, you're asking questions, you're not waiting for me to call you and say, oh, by the way, we need you out here next week. And as you know, you get busy, and I call it a threshold of pain, being
Yeah.
strategic of going, okay, we can only take on so many projects. So do we have the bandwidth next quarter? We were talking about January coming in. Okay, what is the new year looking like? And we have a meeting this Friday, just kind of going, okay, we know we're booked out the first 3 to 4 weeks with steady work, which is great. We've got
Hmm.
a couple new projects that are kicking in. So one, what are the gaps we need to fill with that 1, 2, or 3 day gap that we've got that to make sure we can hit these deadlines correctly? And in our business, it's like you can look at your calendar one month and go, I don't know how I'm going to get this done. And then the next month you're going, I've been so busy trying to get all this stuff done. Then you're going, okay, now I got another month. I've got to ramp sales back up to stay busy.
Exactly.
So we strategically have been, and we've been fortunate to grow to that place because I have been in that position where I'm going, okay, I got a large, $1 million residential project we're doing right now. And if I'm not careful, that could suck the life out of my team
Hmm.
just because it's a lot of work, as you well know, to get done. So we've really, and a lot of that goes back to that principle where Charles said, hey, you're going to install for 6 months and figure this out,
Yeah. Yeah.
and really understanding it from the ground floor up because there's not one installer that can come to me and say, "Oh, I had to splice whatever today," And I'm going, I've been there. I get it. I
Yeah.
trust me. I've been it. And so that's one of the things we really try to be intentional is guiding that process, making sure that we're working with that PM, at
Hmm.
least every week we're getting an update from them.
So what would you say is your first key strategic hire for your business as you're starting to grow and scale out? Who
Yeah.
was that
So
for you?
right, if you don't mind me kind of rewinding, then so our first strategic hire was once we got to a certain place, I said we've got to have a CFO. I mean, Mara, my
Mhm.
partner, and I are not going to sit around and look at, but we had to define what that was, not just the title. We had to, really take a look and go, well, we've got the cash flow to where we can do this, and it was a big hire. So we brought her on, gosh, 4 years ago. And, it was one of those big hires where you're going, okay, that means we got to ramp our sales up to make sure we're covering this salary as she's coming in. But you know what? You grow into it. We grew into it.
Yeah.
They were so efficient. What I also found was we're not chasing money anymore.
Mm.
Not having to call the clients because that was one thing we said, hey, we've got to make sure if we bring you on that you're helping us collect in a timely fashion so that we can free up and continue to fill that pipeline up, not come back and go, okay, we just finished, the rough end. Now let's invoice for the trim out to secure pricing on the equipment. It was more, we educated her on how our business works. And then she set up the metrics within her system to kind of go, okay, this process is done. I need to go ahead and invoice because they're net 30, but we also know we need to order equipment. So my
Mhm.
cash will get crunched. We write our contract in such a way to where we're about 90% paid before we even install a piece of equipment.
Oh, that's smart.
And that's because it helps with cash flow, and especially on these larger commercial projects, we really on some of those from a cash flow standpoint, we might say the project is X, so we might go back to okay, every month for the next 12 months, we're just going to invoice you this certain amount, and that keeps us the cash flow coming in. So instead of them having to write big checks, they're able to say, okay, I'm going to pay X per month for the next 12 months. The project's done. And then we strategically then have to manage that project correctly just to make
Hmm.
sure we're not getting over our skis as far as what we have financed to bring that
Yeah.
job.
So so aside from the CFO, what do you think is another key?
Sure. So the next one would be our COO.
Okay.
We really said, okay, we used to call them kickoff meetings, but Alan, who's our COO, always says kickoff means you don't have a clue where the ball's going. So we call them handoff meetings to where he's coming and really been strategic. What I did with him was we knew we needed that hire 2 years ago. So he came in and spent 2 weeks with us just kind of observing, just feeling
Hmm.
the place out. One, I wanted to make sure this was going to be a great environment for him to work in.
Hmm.
Second, wanted him to help me find some of the blind spots because, as you well know, running your own business, you're always here
Yeah.
versus coming in at 10,000 feet. So he brought back three or four things that I didn't even see, to where the handoff from our sales to the operations was a little clunky.
Hmm.
And, I was assuming they would just, hey, project sold, operations, do your thing, where there needed to be really more time spent from our side of the business, from the sales team to the ops, to make sure, one, they understood exactly what the client was expecting, what the schedule looked like, what promises as a sales guy made that, you know, they're not aware of. We really talk about that honestly. But, some sales guys will come in and go, oh yeah, we can do that, no problem. Oh yeah, we can do that. Then you hand off to operations, and they get out there going, we can't do this.
I'm
There's
guilty of that.
yeah. And so
And
it's
it,
one of those. So we've really tried to say, one, if you have a client, that loves the technology. So back to Alan. So from meeting with our team, what I found out with Alan is our leadership development with our teams was starting to lag a little bit. And that was because we were all giving everything we had, and we were just giving them our leftovers. We weren't being
mm,
strategic about it. So I think as a business owner, you have to look at that and go, oh, maybe it'll just fix itself later, or maybe that's just an isolated issue and the next project will do better. No, I think sometimes you have to kind of pump the brakes and say, if we really want to execute in this area well, it's not going to fix itself. You have to be intentional, just as you are about your sales, your pipeline, as you are about making sure you execute the jobs. Because these jobs can't go on for 24 months and all of a sudden you're doing warranty for another year, then you're
mhm.
back. You just can't scale it that way. So we really try our best. And most of them, I should say, he has an incredible handle on all the projects we have going on. I mean, I could call him right now and say, hey, where are we on XYZ? But it's because he does a great job managing the information.
Mm,
That's the other key. If you don't have someone managing the information, managing the conversations, it used to be, hey, I sent you a text on that. Well, I got another text. I need to get a chance to look at that text. So we made a decision. If we're going to bring systems in to help us manage our projects, we've got to use them. So Monday.com is kind of our go-to. Everything gets loaded in that per project. It's up to the technicians and the project manager to make sure that is updated daily. And it took us about 8 months to really fine tune that, because it was still, we're all creatures of habit. It's too easy to call. I'm sitting in
yeah.
traffic. I'll just call you and download the information. And then the person they downloaded the information just forgot to input it. So we just said, hey, we'd rather you just, before you get in the van to roll back to the office, just take 10, 15 minutes and just update it, or update it throughout the day as a
Yeah.
project's going on. Just give us some nuggets. And then Friday, if Alan needs further information from you, he can go right into Monday, ask the questions he needs, and then at your leisure, you can update that. But we make sure that every project is updated by Thursday night at 9 o'clock is our goal. So then Friday we roll in, we kind of have the latest pulse
Yeah.
on where we are on projects. And if we need information, instead of calling them, we'll just use that as a feedback loop to go, hey, can you help us figure out what we need? And you know what, you've got till Monday to get it to us.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a part of our breaks at time in our system is because I'm that key person that people contact because I'm the one that sells the system and
Sure.
kind of helps manage the project. So they're always contacting me.
Right.
So we put in a way that if they're going to text, they have to text this number because we're using a platform called B texting. So that
Okay.
way everybody sees it if it's a support type text or support
Right.
issue.
Well, one
But
thing you brought up a great segue, because one thing that when I realized I was having to kind of move out of the sales and design, which I missed terribly, and I probably will sell 4 or 5 projects a year, most of them the larger residentials that I'm working on.
mhm,
About 2 years ago, I started taking some of our lead techs with me on sales calls. And when I go to meet with a client, they were familiar with it. They got to know it. That sales tech was probably going to be the project manager on that job. But they were
mm,
seeing things that I wasn't seeing because they're in the field every day. They're
yeah,
working, the newest version of whatever software we're working with. And they kind of help me too, from the creative standpoint, to not be the only one that has it all in his head, but that we're
mhm,
kind of sharing that. Then I started bringing in one of my sales guys. He's started off an installer. He's now moving into sales, did a great job. That's part of the process. I said, okay, one, you're a great installer. You're going to know how to bid the labor. You're going to know how to bid the equipment. You're working with it. So every job we try to do, we at least want to take one of our techs with us, or
uh-huh.
our director of operations with us, who also was an ex-installer and has his information from that. He can come back too. So it's not just in one guy's head.
Yeah. That's smart because I feel one, my business partner today, he's very technical.
Hmm.
We went to a business workshop that Grant Cardone put on,
Hmm.
and we took this disc assessment,
Yeah.
personality disc
Oh,
assessment,
yeah.
and we are just complete opposites. He's the person that really drives things, but loves, to look at numbers and analyze, read manuals. He's that kind of person. So he's got that d desire to really understand how things work. Where I'm just kind of the big picture guy. Let's get this going. Let's get moving. But he's like, no, let's understand it. So
Right.
when we've gone to sales calls together to where we're walking on things, he's looking at things completely different. I'm just having the conversation with a client, finding out what they want, how we
Hmm.
can provide a solution for them, where he's like, no, we need to understand this. How are they going to interact with the system? How do they want to control it? And so he has a lot different perspective and other questions to ask outside of what I would ask. So I think that's smart.
Yeah.
And I need to do that more often because sometimes it's like we both get busy doing
Absolutely.
things that I'm just running to a sales meeting or, meeting with a new client.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me, I think the largest hurdle was, eh, there's clients now we go through that I have no idea who they are. And as a
Hmm.
guy who helped start the company, you kind of start going, wait a minute, I don't know who these people are. So a lot of individuals that are friends of mine that are in this industry that are great entrepreneurs, they have that what I call Klingon sensation. They just can't let go. They can't let go of the
Yeah.
client. They've got to be the one, and they're only able to grow it that far. So to really accelerate and grow it, one, you've got to have the trusted resources around. You have to be
Hmm.
intentional about finding those trusted resources. And then once that trust level is there, you've got to trust them to hand it off. And they're going to make mistakes. They're not going to do it the same way you do it. They're not going to approach it the same way you approach it, but you've got to give them enough opportunity to where eventually they're going to come back and see, okay, the system is working. I just need to work within this system. So a lot of people will say, and I'm a big believer, if you don't have a system in place, you can't scale.
Yeah.
If you're just jumping around. So 3 years ago, I hired a friend of mine to come in. He was in between being a CEO of a very, very large organization. I said, hey, I want to compensate you to come and look under our hood, tell me what we're doing, help us just streamline. Because as you well know, with technology today, you could have 60 different systems. You could have
Yeah.
Slack, you could have this, you could have that. And we did. We were guilty of it because we're all tech guys. We love it. And all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, we got 5 different systems we're trying to use
Hmm.
to, we've got to go streamline this down. So I brought him in. I said, help us just streamline this down to one, a proposal system that we use that we know we're comfortable with. Second, a daily kind of management process that we can use. Doesn't need to be in construction management. That we looked at a lot of those tools
Yeah.
too. Thinking, oh, we could take some of those tools, throw them in it. Well, there's a lot of stuff that we just didn't need. We thought we did, but we really didn't
Hmm.
need it. So we said, he came back and said, I just think you need to really accelerate. We're already using Monday.com. He said, he said, you make a decision. You've already know what proposal system you're going to use. You already have your QuickBooks that you're using for your accounting. So now let's just figure out that communication channel of how everybody's going to report back differently. Because
Hmm.
what happened is they'd have 5 different group checks going on, and somebody would get left off on it and forget about it. And it was just kind of chaotic. And I said, we can't continue to live in the chaos. We've got to get to a point where we're all going to be committed to communicating. And so literally we went out down the room and said, okay, is everybody committed to Monday? Yes, we're committed to it. Then we had to find someone to hold us accountable to that. And that's where Alan came in to say, okay, I'm going to hold you accountable. And there's times I'll get a text going, hey, you had to update to Monday today. And I'll jump in and go, okay, it's right. It's Thursday. I need to update my stuff before Friday's meeting.
Yeah. That's good. I like that, holding account to that. And I know that that's one thing that we've it sounds like we're kind of following along in those same footsteps. So we've tried all these different platforms,
Yeah.
but we're settling with a couple of them.
Yeah.
Connect Teams is one that we use to kind of keep, schedule the guys and know what's going on. Um, but making sure the guys are using it is another thing too, that when they get to job sites that they're using that to say, hey, here's, we're at the job site. This is, this this is what we completed today. This is what's left. At least updating us there so that we're not having to constantly chase them down. Um, so when you shifting back to like guys that you hire and stuff,
Yeah.
like what qualities do you look for, whether it's an installer whether it's a lead tech or a salesperson, what qualities do you look for in individuals?
Well, we try to just because I'm really, we are all really big on keeping our culture as close. I know that's an overused thing, but we're really fortunate. We really have created a pretty unique culture with our installers. There's never, hey, you did this wrong. They politely will help each other out. So we, like every other company, we level our techs one, two, and three to keep
Hmm.
things simple. One is kind of our top tier. Two is kind of the mid-level guy you could send out with a box of gear. He can rack it, stack it, get it ready. He's
Hmm.
probably control four. And then your third would be the guy that's, hey, I'm kind of green to this, but I'm learning. So we really have been intentional. Say, okay, we want to bring in individuals that there's nothing wrong bringing someone with 20 years experience, but they also bring in 20 years experience, sometimes with bad habits.
Yeah,
So we said, okay, what we're going to do is really try to be as intentional as we can on our new hires. They have some technology ability, but we also want them to be fast track learners. So then what happens is with two things it shows us is one, this individual is going to really be motivated to get to that tier one tech level. So it motivates them to say, hey, when you get to that tier two, tier three, tier one, whatever it might be, you're going to be compensated at a different level because you've executed these three things. So Alan is really good about, sitting down at least twice a month with every technician we have, saying, hey, here's where we are. Here's what we talked about 6 months ago. Let's see kind of where we are.
yeah,
And most of them are scaling correctly. Most of them are, you got some that are kind of going, oh, I thought I was really going to be into fiber termination. That's just not my deal. Rather know that now. So then that way we can go, okay, we might have a gap here if we thought that this individual is really going to grow into a fiber guy. That means we really need to look from the next strategic hire for someone who really is kind of, that's their wheelhouse. So
yeah.
we have our guys that do all the control four program. We got our guys that do a lot of the lighting, have our guys that we know we can send out for the big commercial fiber optics. We kind of know those sweet spots, but from a hiring standpoint, we really, to try to our best to go hire at that one or two, I'm sorry, that two or three tier level, and then hopefully grow them to that one.
Okay.
And
Now,
then a big question I asked to keep our culture, because I mean, I played baseball and sports growing up. It's probably not the best HR question to ask, but I always start off, and I'm usually the last one or with this question. Tell me a little bit about your team sports experience growing up. Like, did you play baseball? Did you play football? What'd you do? Because we are very much, our company is very much a team oriented company just because of the way I lead, the way Alan leads, are all sports guys. And someone comes down and goes, "Oh, I wasn't into sports." Nothing wrong with that, but it helps us
yes.
kind of know, okay, how are we gonna, if this guy's a great hire, then how are we gonna help him get the skill set to begin to work with a team?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's very, very important, I think, for us to continue to keep the culture that we've created.
Yeah, that is. I mean, one of the things I always try to do too with the guys is coach. I try to tell them, I've learned this. I said, do not make me be your boss.
Right.
Do not make me, I do not want to be your boss. If you make me be that, you're not going to like me,
Right.
but I want to be able to coach you and lead you. So I try to approach things in with that perspective of like talking about what when we're starting a pre-wire or starting an install, review everything with them, what our targets are for that day and stuff. So I try to coach them
Yeah.
in that retrospect. Um, but yeah, it's it's a challenge, in finding, at least here in LA, in
Mhm.
finding those people that one have a great attitude, because I've heard it said to hire for attitude and train for results.
Correct.
And it's just finding those guys, because we've got guys that have come from other companies to work with us. And like you said, they're bringing baggage, they're bringing things, some good, some bad. But
Mhm.
then it's just been a bit of a challenge. When you hire someone, do you set aside a certain amount of payroll or salary and savings per se before you
Yeah.
hire them?
We do. We kind of set, it's probably a better question for leader. I mean, I get financial reports every day, but we
Yeah.
definitely have the savings there that we use for strategic growth. And that growth could be hiring an employee. Hey, we need to purchase a
Mm.
new van. Hey, something came up. We got to jump on this. Or this client, it's an opportunity for us to really get our foot in the door, but we're going to have to float this for 60 to 90 days. So that bucket's used for several different things. And it's not, I don't want to use the word emergency fund, but it is a savings account that we use to scale the business from.
Yeah.
The thing Mark and I really made a commitment to is from an operating standpoint, we're debt free. We operate as a debt free company. That's just very important. That gives you the opportunity to scale and
Hmm.
gives you the opportunity to also reinvest into your employees. And we'll approach it with our team. If we have a large project coming up, we'll ask our whole team, hey, we can go hire three other guys, or we can incentivize you to help us cross the finish line, and you're going to get X off this project if you help us with that. 9 times out of 10, they'll say, we got it. You don't need to bring anybody else in. And so,
That's
but we
cool.
have to be real intentional of saying, I mean, we'll do 50% more in revenue this year, and we haven't hired what we had last year.
Wow.
We just made our guys real efficient. And I think a lot of that is that key hire of communication and also realizing, my threshold of pain and Mario's threshold of pain happened about 3 years ago to where we couldn't do it all.
Yeah.
And so either we're saying, okay, we plateaued, which is fine, or if we really want to go to that next level, we're going to have to make some big hires and really trust the process of letting them do what they do.
Mm. Yeah, that's I feel I'm in that threshold of pain right now with where we're at.
Yeah.
Um, so when you started this company, as far as building and scaling the company for growth, did you have like an exit strategy in mind when you started, or how did that work for you?
Well, my first company is the one I sold, and I had a partner in that company when we started in 1999 is when we started that first company called Technology General Contractors. We were
Okay.
based in Atlanta. And the gentleman that was my partner in that was a guy who played for the Atlanta Braves, Otis Nixon. So he already
Okay.
had kind of a built-in network. And he had a retail location that was at the mall in Alpharetta. We pulled that out, started a true custom design build. But in some ways, it was like shooting fish in a barrel because he would call me and be like, hey, go talk to this guy. Boom, go close a deal. Okay, go talk to this guy. This was like one or two a week. And
Wow.
when I first started that company, it was, one of these things that it snowballed to where, and literally, I was younger then too, had a lot more energy. Within 36 months, I had a location in Atlanta, Naples, Florida, and New York.
Wow.
And we built that, but it was quite the ride. We made a lot of mistakes, figuring that out,
Hmm.
but we did really well. So we're not really building to sell it, but I knew it was one of the things again, that threshold of pain. What am I really good at doing, and what do I need to delegate? That was a big
Yeah.
question for me. And so in that process, okay, I need to delegate, and again, another operations guy, another purchasing guy, another guy that's keeping track of inventory. Instead of me doing it all myself, I need to begin to really strategically think for that. So that got us to a place to where we became attractive to a client that wanted to buy us. And so
Mm.
through the due diligence, I had everything in place, I had a third party evaluation. And, it took us probably about 9 months to kind of walk through that process together. I stayed on for 9 months after the company was sold and transitioned to new ownership, which was a great transition. It was just that anything else, when you go into trying to sell a company, two things you have to remember is you're going to be replaced at some point in time.
Yeah.
So you have to recognize you will no longer be wearing that hat. You won't be the guy making that call. So I recognize that going into it. So we brought in an interim CEO on my first company that took over and started running. He worked with me
Mm.
for almost 6 months, and we had some really good conversations during that process. But it allowed me to kind of go, okay, I got to start moving out of this process at some point. If not, it'll
Yeah.
be just call Steve and stay in it. So we did sell that company, and I had went into the nonprofit world and had a little bit of a non-compete. But I think if you go in thinking, okay, I'm going to exit this company in 5 years, what I'm finding is you better have a plan.
Yeah.
You better have a plan in place, and you better be put. I always say, if I know we want to sell this company in the next 5 years, then we already need to be living 3 years out
Yeah.
to be that far ahead of the curve to get it in the position to do that. And again, we're very fortunate. We are, as you are, technology companies are always sought after.
Hmm.
again, it's more of the things of going where we are. Is this going to be a lifestyle business for us, or do we really want to go for that next thing? And then what kind of commitment are we willing to make after that sale happens to stay on for another 5, 6, 7 years? And so those are the conversations that we have had with a couple different opportunities that come along. And as of yet, we have not pulled the trigger on that, but we did. I think it's important to, if you are going to sell, just don't do the, oh, whatever it's worth kind of thing. Spend the
Yeah.
money, get a party evaluation done on your company. You might be surprised what it comes back at.
Hmm.
Uh, versus you're thinking, oh, I can get an 8 to 12 time multiple. Well, those aren't there anymore. They're just not.
Yeah.
By the time you do your due diligence, they're going to look at the numbers. They're going to see one, what's the real scalability of it.
Yeah.
Or they and I always say they're either buying a problem or they're buying a process. If someone
Yeah.
can buy a process, they'd rather buy the process and try to come in and fix it because it's easier to scale. So
Yeah.
part of our strategic planning is, Marty, I do want to sell this in the next 5 years. One, we've got an amazing CFO already in place. I've already got a great COO in place. I've already got a great director of operations in place. So anyone could come in and just basically fuel the fire, pour some gas in the engine, and it's going to go. Even
Yeah.
without me not being there, it's going to go because the processes and the people are there. And I think
Yeah.
if you get the right people and the right processes in place, it becomes real attractive for someone to come in and go, I want a piece of that. I want to be involved in an organization like that because I can take it from here to here real quick.
Yeah. I think that's for me. I'm just trying to exit certain roles in the company
Yeah, there you
so
go.
that it can run without me.
Right.
At least I can take a 2 week vacation and not receive a phone call during that time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Well, you're kind of in, I mean, I was that way, my work, we were laughing about this the other day with my wife. When I had my first company, my routine was this. I leave the house at 6:30 in the morning, go
mhm.
to the office, make sure everything was rolling, make sure everything was going great, and then when the girls got home from school, my two daughters around 3:34, I'd go home for a couple hours, help my wife get them to bed, and then I was back at the office working on proposals from usually 7 o'clock until I almost fell asleep, go home and do that drill again, and it was very, very fatiguing.
Yeah.
And I think that, some people will kind of do this like, yeah, I'm the man, but if you're not careful, it can become something you're not being strategic. So I think you have to really be strategic and have that talk with the man in the mirror, as I say, and go, okay, it's really time. We've talked about this for 6 months.
Mhm.
Talked about doing this for 6 months. Either let's quit talking about it or let's do it. Because if not, we're creatures of habit, and you'll find yourself kind of right back in that same position. So as
Yeah.
a business owner, I just really try to encourage, other entrepreneurs to say, one, you're incredibly good at what you do, but get your system in place first. Because if you have a really solid system in place, and guess what? You're going to attract the talent.
Yeah.
You'll find the talent. The talent will come to an organization that is not perfect. I mean, there's no perfect company, but a company that is really built for scale. You've got to be a little strategic and have great systems in place if you want to scale it.
Yeah. So, speaking of morning routines, what are some of the things that you do on a daily basis that you feel helps you be successful in your business?
Great question. So I'm not a morning guy. So if I always say if you see me at the office at 6:30, please call 911 because there's probably a problem. No, I'm teasing. But I try to only try to do two strategic lunches a week. And so what I did a couple years, I really hired someone to come in and help us as basically a calendar coach. Come in and help me figure out where some of my gaps are. Where am I wasting time? Because if I have open time on my calendar, I can get in a lot of trouble. I mean, there's stuff I
Yeah.
can go over here and do this and do that. Oh, I got time. They run over here. So I'm very strategic, and my wife says I'm very routine. So usually I'm in the office by 9, and I don't take a lunch. I just kind of bring my power bars where I'm going to eat to the office, and I'll do my calls. And on Mondays, I'm usually there until about 2:33. Then I go to our South office in Fayetteville, spend the night there, have a couple meetings there on Tuesday, and then Wednesdays through Fridays, I try to stay very much in our North Atlanta office. But
Mm,
my daily routine is do two strategic lunches a week. I usually try to be out of the office around 4:30 every day so that I can go work out my self-care, which is extremely important,
mhm.
uh, because our office is designed a little bit there. We have like an open office space. No one has offices.
Yeah,
We did that intentionally because there's so much collaboration that goes on when we're designing, when we're doing proposals, and it's not chaotic. It's, hey, I'm working on this proposal, jump in here with me real quick, or let's sit at this table together real fast and just knock this out. And it starts more of the collaboration, which also gets our guys involved in the process of the jobs earlier.
that's cool.
So we do not have like, hey, I'm sitting in my, I've had the corner office. That's not where our company currently is neither, but I
Yeah.
think it's a great place to be. Um, and then usually, we try to on Fridays, if our guys work hard enough, we try to be out of the office by 3:30 every Friday.
Oh, that's cool.
And we're pretty good at it because our guys say, hey, we'd rather have that time. Now, there's some Fridays we don't hit that mark, but we just say, hey, you know what? Maybe this month we're going to try to hit it at least one time this Friday out of the month. And
I
what I
like
found
that. I
when we
wrote
do
that down.
that, yeah, what I found when we do that, we on our scheduling meetings on Friday kind of talk through that. We're really good about trying to say, okay, are we going to try to find that Friday this month or a team building? Sometimes, hey, let's knock off Friday at 3. Let's come back to the office, hang out. We'll order food in. Everybody just hang out, relax, catch up for a little bit, and then we're done. And
Yeah.
sometimes they like that kind of synergy as well. But I try to model for myself personally to where opening up Imagine displays as well has been a little more strategic in as far as me having to plan my time and calendar to where I
Hmm.
give 2 days a week to that. That's been a real struggle. But if I didn't have the infrastructure in place when Mike and I began to talk about that, there would be no way I could have done that and
Yeah.
done it effectively. And I'm sure there's a lot of gaps somewhere, but I do my best every day to kind of have that same routine. My wife always says, I don't have to, know where you are at 5:30. I know you're at the gym, you're out running, you're somewhere else. She said you'll be home between 6:30 and 7. That's just kind of the routine.
Yeah. So what keeps you motivated?
Great question. You know, I really love seeing our guys grow into great leaders, and that's what motivates me. I said this 2 years ago, our guy, I said, look, I said, if any of you ever want to go start your own business and you want to go leave, here's what I ask. One, give us the opportunity to invest in that business with you.
Hmm.
Second, bring us a business plan that really looks pretty solid and we'll go do it with you. And I always say, one, no one's ever taken me up on that offer, but we've got some great leaders. So what I'm
Yeah.
inspired about now is seeing a guy who's been with us 6 years, who now is, on the cusp of becoming an amazing sales guy.
Mm.
And we started to have those conversations. Hey, where do you want to be? And how can I help get you to that place? Because I think if other leaders aren't afraid of accelerating people, and what I hope is one day I've duplicated myself, that
Yeah.
someone's doing what I'm doing, and maybe I still own the company, but I'm not in the day-to-day operations of it. Right now, I'm not in the day-to-day operations, which is still a very odd place for me to be,
Hmm.
just because one, we built a great system. So what really excites me is seeing our team grow into incredible leaders, individuals who can make a decision and not have to call and get permission to make that decision. And I think that has to come back to you as in your position as well. You have to have that high trust factor in those individuals first. Second, don't be afraid to let them make mistakes.
Hmm.
So we strategically say, hey, here's a spending limit that you have in your budget to set up. Don't call me if you haven't hit that. I'm trusting you to hit that mark.
Yeah.
Now I had to say, okay, they don't need to call me for financial stuff. Now they call Leadar and say, hey, here's what I'm looking to do. What does cash flow look like? Where are we? Yes, go ahead. You're good to go. So it kind of keeps me out of those loops to where I'm able then to have metrics where I can measure all of that, but I'm
Hmm.
not look at it hour by hour. Because what I'm most effective at is building relationships, growing the company, seeing the opportunities to accelerate the growth. And where Mario is more kind of like your part, he's the guy that's going to sit down and design it. He's
Yeah.
going to figure it out. He's going to be the CTO that really comes in and says, okay, here's our opportunity that was been presented to us. Here's how we're going to design it for scale. Here's where we're going. So we kind of have had this really very unique relationship as a partnership. He and I have never had any kind of disagreement, any kind of argument. We just kind of come, let us reason together, figure it out, and kind of go, yeah, that makes sense. Let's go for it. So I really love empowering other leaders to do what they're called to do, and then also puts me in the position to make sure that if they said, hey, I really want to do this, that we put up a support system for them to get to that place.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can see just from our conversation the culture that you built and how you attract people that want to be a part of that culture. So that's
Well,
really cool.
it's, as I say, it's not a perfect system, but I think people, I heard this term. Al and I were talking about this yesterday. People don't leave work because of work and go find somewhere else to work. They leave when the decision is made. One, I'm not valued.
Hmm.
There's not an opportunity to grow. And I think if you're not giving your employees the opportunity to grow, that's not on them. That's on you as a leader.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where you have to kind of have those talks. So the other thing I really try to be intentional about is I have a really amazing group of other CEOs and executives and entrepreneurs that are way ahead of me, way ahead of me. I mean, they flipped 100 million, 300 million, billion-dollar companies. And, I just really come to them and say, not, hey, can you mentor me? But, hey, I'm dealing with this issue. What would you do?
Mm.
But you've got to be vulnerable enough as a leader to kind of go, I pounded my head up against the wall. I've done the chat GPT thing 5 times and none of this is working. So I'm at my wit's end. I need someone who's 5, 10, 15 years ahead of me that I can just call and go, hey, I'm dealing with this issue.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts? And then let them help you navigate that. And I've been fortunate enough that I've got guys like Ted Hollander who I can call and go, hey, you own Hollander Designs. I got this opportunity. Should I go for it or should I just kind of think through it a different or give me some fresh perspective. But I think that's super important to really growing it. And that's something that took me a lot of time to get comfortable with. Just because we all want to feel like, oh, we got this figured out, man. We
Yeah.
don't need, I'm the guy that's crushing it. But I think if you want the longevity and you really want to have it positioned to sell one day or do something with it one day, you got to execute and put it in the systems in place that allow you to do that.
Yeah. The more I hang around, individuals like you, like Ken Jocelyn,
Yeah.
and other people that I hang out with, the more I realize the importance of that proximity, of being
Yeah.
around people like that, being able to pick up the phone and make a phone call to someone to say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. How do I get through this, or how do I get past this? How do we, you know, plan for what we need, what's next?" So I think that's key. So that's a great point.
Yeah, and one of the things when I have the time, I don't use the word consultant, I have other individuals who have started up technology companies, and just because I've got the broken arms and the scars to prove that I went through it. There's a lot of this first, set up, and I always say to them, we're always thinking, where do we want to be, not next year, but where do we want to be in 24 months?
Mm,
Because next year comes real quick. So
yeah.
instead of thinking, hey, where do I want to be in 5 years? I mean, it's hard to believe we're just weeks away from Christmas. And, I was like, this is amazing how fast time flies, especially in small businesses like we or have the opportunity to lead and uh, kind of steer. It comes really fast. So for us is where do I want to be in 24 months? Because you think about it, we're already looking at Q1 going, okay, Q1 is going to be burned through here real quick next year.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden we'll be staring and going, okay, where are we? So I'm trying to really start thinking in 24-month blocks, not worry about the 5-year goal. I mean, someone asked me what my 5-year goal is. Personally, I can tell you what that is. But for our company, just really thinking about the 12 and 24 months, where do you want to be?
Yeah.
And it helps me kind of know, okay, we can scale. We scaled to this last 12 months. So now, okay, I think we can easily scale to this the next 12 months just by the referrals and just by we're fortunate to have the business in our pipeline. And it becomes in managing that process. So for me, I
Yeah.
really think now more in that 24-month, where do we want to be? And I begin to live there. It's like my friend told me, great guy. He said, he goes, you can think about being somewhere in 24 months, but you've got to start living in it right now.
Mm,
You got to start operating in that. So let's say your company is doing X and you really want it to be a $12 million company in 24 months, let's say. I'm using that number as a
yeah.
scenario. Well, then you need to start operating right now as a $12 million company. If not, you'll never get there. You need to put systems in place that allow you to get to that number. So a lot of times when I meet with guys who say, hey, I want to, I'm at 3 million. I want to get it to 12 million in the next 24 months. Okay, then start living in that right now. That means you probably need to go hire a strategic hire. Not sure what that is, but you probably need to make that decision to financially obligate yourself, say, I've got to make this strategic hire. If not, I'll never hit that goal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think for us, that's kind of where we're finding ourselves right now. It's like, what is that next hire that we
Right,
need? One that's going to give me my time back.
right,
And then also, I think what helps with my business partner because of his background in corporate IT
mhm,
and being a Cisco certified network engineer,
right,
um, his time is best spent, just on the troubleshooting and helping clients and being able to design systems and stuff. So, finding that next key hire that's going to give us some of our time back to allow
right.
the company to grow. Um, One question I've learned to ask, and I learned this from someone, is it's easy for people to look at us from the outside and think we've got all of these, everything just seems like perfect. So, my question to you as we wrap up, what does it cost to be you? And do you know what I mean by that? As far as like, if someone were to say, "Hey, I want to be like you," then you're going to, be able to tell them what it's going to cost them in time and energy and effort and even resources.
Yeah,
So, my question is, what does it cost to be you?
that's a great question. I think you have to, from a dollar sign, I think you have to, there's not really a dollar sign I want to use. The analogy is, I think you have to be patient with yourself.
Hmm.
You have to be strategic in your goals, and you've got to be really disciplined to do that. Yeah, I made a comment the other day to someone, and my wife kind of corrected me. I said, "Oh, I don't take lunches." He's like, "Why would you say that? They have no clue what you're even talking about because you didn't explain that." So
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, I don't take." Well, here's the reason why I don't take lunches, because my free time is more important at the end of the day, and that's when I need to wind down anyways towards the end of the day to be able to do that. But I think you have to be, for me to be me, I think you have to, one, be disciplined.
Hmm.
You've got to be able to really get ahead of the curveball, looking for where, I don't want to use the word mistakes, where there could be an opportunity for miscommunication to happen and slow the process up. You have to learn to delegate extremely well and trust. And delegate doesn't mean, oh, I'm too busy to do this, is delegate with the why behind the delegating. Not just, oh, go over here and do this for me. It's no, once you tell the individual, hey, here's what I need your assistance with and your help with, this would be a huge help to me. And I think you'll be perfect for it. Then it doesn't feel as if they're just being patted on the head. Hey, go take care of this. It's intentional delegation. It's being intentional
Yeah.
about what you're telling your team to do. I think it's also holding myself personally, being willing to hold yourself to accountability.
Hmm.
I think that's extremely important to have accountability of people, your small tribe around you that can call you out. So in my company, my small tribe can call me out if there's something that they're going, don't see that happening. And, I have
Yeah.
to be willing to take that and, humbly kind of go, okay, I get it, understand it. Now, there's sometimes I leave there going, I'm going to get my way because no means maybe to me. But I've had to learn that, we've got a system in place. I've got to trust that system, let that system operate. Also, just being very, and this is going to sound weird, but I think it's really what's attributed our growth is I haven't always been this way, but I'm very much a routine person. And do my best to stick to that routine religiously.
Yeah.
Like I said, my two strategic lunches. I love hanging out with my buddies, love all that, but that's afternoon. That's like 4:35. That's the time I
Yeah.
get to hang out with them. So my 9 to 4 is all work,
Yeah.
with the exception of 2 days a week where I'll do a strategic lunch. And that lunch has got to be something that's going to, one, either bring us future business or it's a strategic partnership that we're working with. So a lot of that right now is, like this week, my lunch schedule is with tomorrow, a strategic commercial contracting company that we've done some work with, and now we're going to be doing some more work with. Then my Thursday lunch is with another builder developer. So I really try to be very strategic that I'm not saying we'll have lunch with friends, but it's at least twice a week, have those meetings. And most of the time, they're not people we're doing work with. They're people who've been referred. So when I get a referral,
Hmm.
first thing I do is call and go, "Hey, Mark, got your name from Joe Smith. When do you have time to grab lunch? Love to connect with you." I don't call and say if you have time. It's I'm
Yeah.
intentional about my ask, and I think
Yeah.
for me, you've got to be real intentional about that ask. So some people feel like, well, you could have easily emailed them. I don't do emails. I do the call first and I follow up with an email. And then the person that gave me that introduction, I asked them, say, hey, I'm going to call him tomorrow. So if you say, hey, Steve, I got a client, yeah, I want you, okay, I'm going to call them tomorrow. Would you do me a favor and just let them know that I'm going to reach out to them tomorrow? Shoot them a text, say, hey, Steve from Atlanta Technology Contractors going to reach out to you tomorrow. So they're ready for my call. 9 times out of 10, when I ask someone to do that, they'll do it. So I
Yeah.
think you have to be me. You have to be intentional when someone gives you a relationship, how you're going to manage that relationship.
Yeah.
Not take advantage of it, but how you're going to manage it.
Yeah.
And so I hope that answered your question. That's a great question. I've been trying to think.
It
Um,
does
yeah,
because
it really opens your mind to what would it cost. I think for again, it's not that I'm always the best, but I'm a pretty disciplined person, very much routine, and I think that discipline has taken me a long time to really do it. 'Cause like I said, a lot of that is because if I have open time on my calendar, I can get in a lot of trouble if I'm not careful.
yeah, I
So
I agree to that 100%.
I'm looking around going, how did I get over here?
Yeah.
I have to be very much, strategic and just kind of going, okay, if I'm going to hold other people accountable, then I need to hold myself accountable.
Yeah, and for me, I feel I tend to be in reactive mode sometimes a little too much
Yeah.
if a a client or contractor calls and says, "Hey, we're trying to figure this thing out. Can you meet us over at the job site?" And like you said, if there's open space in my calendar, I'm like, "Sure, I can do that."
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, I'm letting somebody else dictate my calendar as
Yeah.
opposed to saying, I can't meet you at 2. I've got time between this time and this time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing that, you have to protect. Years ago, and this is the first time in, gosh, 6 years where I haven't had an assistant.
Mm,
And I did that intentionally because, I really wanted to, they were managing my schedule for me and they kind of knew the same drill. But I said, no, I need to be the owner of my calendar.
yeah.
And I had stepped up to the plate and said, if I can't manage my own time, then there's no way I can manage this company. There's no way I can steward that gift really well. So I think
Mhm.
to be me, to kind of put a bow around your question, is I have to hold Steve to higher standards. So then, one, I can also hold my guys to the same standards. And if I'm keeping those standards, and they know my guys know my schedule most of the time. You could ask them right now, what's Steve's schedule look like? They'll tell you he's here by 9, he's usually out by 3:30 or 4. He does 2 intentional lunches. I'm trying to develop when I learned that process and invested in myself, which I think is
Mhm.
invested in yourself. Say, okay, I'm going to live with this routine. It was miserable for the first 6 months.
Yeah.
But then once I got into the routine, I started, wow, I found margin in my calendar to where, like the call you mentioned, if a client does call and they say, hey, we got this issue, I know that usually between 3 and 5, I've got about 30 minutes that if I need to do something, I can swing by and do it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and not get caught up in a 4 hour process and getting home at 9:30 or 10. That
Mhm.
happens occasionally, but for the most part, it's, we've really done a good job, as I said, putting processes and systems and then kind of being committed to those.
Yeah. Man, this has been great. I really
I hope
appreciate
so.
your
Yeah, I love
time.
the conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, it's helpful to me. I think being in conversation in general is always helpful. Whatever industry you're in, whatever you want to do, just being in conversation with people to learn and grow. So I appreciate your time on that.
Man, absolutely. Appreciate
So
your time. Thank you for the invite.
yeah, so how can someone get in touch with you if they want to find out more about Atlanta Technology Contractors?
Yeah, I mean, you always go to our website, but
Okay.
I mean, I'm a guy who I love for people to call me directly. So I'm a cell phone guy.
Uh-huh.
Uh, from our website, you can contact our office if you want to. But I'd be more happy to share my cell number. Just call me and ping me, and be more than happy to talk and catch up, and send me a text. Let me know what it is you want to do. But that seems to be the way that I operate. I don't have a voicemail at the office,
Yeah.
just because I want people to know that I'm accessible, and then I can calendar my time with them as we do that. So I can give my cell phone number, and they can call me there.
All right. Well, I will put that in
Yeah,
the notes on the
absolutely. And
post.
also my email, you can put my S Smith at Technology General Contractors
Okay.
email there would be great. But yeah, I want to be accessible to people because I have the benefit of guys being accessible to me. And not that I got it figured out. Whatever's in my cup, I'll pour it out. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for joining us today on Beyond Average to Great. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to show your appreciation is by subscribing to our show and sharing it on your social media channels. Don't forget to tag me when you do. We'll see you on the next episode. Until then, remember, be great.